I'm glad to see we've got a good bit of people here. Going to go over kind of our story and journey and how I've taken craft beer and put it into our pizza business over the last six years. And really, we have sold over $5 million worth of beer in the last 6 years. So, I'm going to show you guys how we did it. And really what I wanted to do was, a lot of times when you sit in these rooms, you wonder, is this stuff that I can take home and do myself? Or is this something that maybe somebody was able to do that I wouldn't be able to duplicate? Well, what I want to tell you is, I don't even drink beer. So for a guy who doesn't even drink can figure out how to sell $5 million worth of beer in 6 years, I think you guys are going to like to see what I have in store for you. So if I can get a show of hands of how many people want to go ahead and learn how to sell some beer in the restaurants. All right, let's begin. So as I said, I've got 5 locations in 6 years. I worked 17 years in the pizza business before that. And then I wanted to really have a pickup and delivery pizza shop. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be by the University of Pittsburgh because that's where I ran a pickup and delivery shop. And I figured if I'm going to sell a lot of pizzas, I want to deliver to University of Pitt. I want to deliver to CMU. And that's what I wanted. So I started to walk into different pizza shops and said, hey, sell me your pizza shop. And they would say, get the hell out of here. And the 5th shop that I walked into, a guy said to me, hey, my friend has a store for sale across the bridge over in Bloomfield. So I said, great, that works out really well. So I walk into Bloomfield expecting to find a Delco unit, and I walk in and it's a full bar. And I said, oh shit, it's a full bar, and for a guy who doesn't even drink, it was overwhelming. But I went in the back, full pizza kitchen, everything we needed. We sat down, all the numbers lined up, and then for the next 6 months, I kept saying all I wanted was a pizza shop. And then really what it was I figured we had a 10-tap system. They sold PBR. It was karaoke was kind of like a hipster thing on Tuesday. It was kind of like one of those places you go in a bathroom, there's graffiti everywhere. It really was like this grungy type bar that we bought in the beginning. And I think everyone always tries to figure out, you bought this bar, how am I going to promote it now? And the biggest thing I think people do when they buy a bar and they try to decide, how am I going to sell beer in my bar? They think promo girls. And they think, okay, I'm going to have as much pitcher specials and have the promo girls come on Friday nights, and that's how I'm going to sell beer. And for me, it didn't take very long for me to figure out that might have been something that worked in the 80s and the 90s. But when you start listening to this younger generation talk about craft beer and how passionate they are about it, it made me really think, as a pizzaola and someone who really enjoys the industry and very passionate about it, we're putting our time into making our own sauce and grating our own cheese and a dough recipe that we're super proud of, cutting our own vegetables, like many of you are, and doing the same things. And what the craft brewers are doing is they're doing the same thing. A lot of these guys started in their garages, and when they started there, they're using the best ingredients they're doing recipes based off of their palates, and they're really trying to figure out how can they have a great product. Same thing as what we're doing as guys in the pizza business. So what I decided to do was, I figured it's time to marriage pizza and craft beer. It didn't take me very long to figure that out, honestly. It was just being in a hip suburb, part of town of Pittsburgh. I figured out real quick that this was the right way to go. So I figured, well, what do I do? Like, how do you start with craft beer? It's so overwhelming. What's micro beer versus craft beer, and where do you even start? And the best place for me to start would probably be the same for you guys to start too. And it's listen to your customers, listen to your staff, the ones that are younger that, sounds like they're for a better lack of terms, like a beer geek, somebody that just knows way too much information about beer. That's really where I started. I started to talk to my staff. I started to talk to a lot of the people that work for me. And I also started to really listen to my customers. And I did a ton of research. And now the best thing I can tell you about research is, here we were about 4 months in, not even, probably 2 months in, brand new shop, trying to sell beer. And what it was is I figured if we're going to sell it, I don't want to do something just like this. I want to do it all the way to the very top. So I decided I wanted to be like the big guys in my area in Pittsburgh. You know, I'm sure you guys could think of in your towns who has the best craft beer bars. It doesn't matter if they don't sell pizza. It's probably better if they don't sell pizza. The fact is that they sell beer, craft beer, and they sell it really, really well. So what we started to do was, as a family, Wednesday in the beginning was the only night that I was taken off, and we would do a family dinner, even before we owned the stores. My kids were at the time maybe like 14 and 12. After about 4 or 5 weeks in, they're like, Dad, do we really have to go to another bar on Wednesday nights? And I said, yeah, we do, because we're trying to figure out, you know, what type of glassware do they use? How much are they pricing their beers? What do their tap lists look like? And the other thing that I started to do was I watch a ton of Bar Rescue. And I mean a ton. I could never watch another episode of Bar Rescue ever. And you may see like John Taffer and think, you know, he's just yelling and screaming, like, is there really anything good there? But in the very beginning, we were Caliente Pizza and Bar. That's how we bought it. And after about 4 to 6 months, we built the brand up so much that I couldn't just take it and call it Caliente Pizza and Bar. I thought about switching the whole name, but it took a while for the liquor license to come through. So I took a tip from John Taffer and just changed the last name, got rid of the bar part, and put Caliente Pizza and Drafthouse. So there's a lot of things that you can pick up different places that you wouldn't really think of trying to find from somebody like a TV show like Bar Rescue, but there's a lot of different places that you can try and gain information. And that's really what I did. I spent a ton of time on the internet researching local breweries, researching different big breweries and different beer bars in different towns. The next thing I did was I went ahead and got rid of 10 taps. I really believe that you can try and figure out what the right tap system is for your town. A lot of people will say that maybe it's 60 taps or 80 taps. What I found out that 20 is a great number. There's a store that we have the second one, and we made the mistake putting 24. We thought a guy down the street has 32 or had 22. So what do you want to do? You want to put 2 more than him. Really, in actuality, when you have 20 taps, you can flip them over and over, and you keep the beer fresh. And what you're going to find out is when you start to bring in people into your establishments that know beer, they're also going to know if you clean your lines and if you use fresh beer, if it's going through there quick. You can't have a keg that you get on there and it sits for 30 days, 60 days. It takes almost 2 months to kick a barrel. You just can't do it. They know better. So you really want to make sure it's not where if you just have a bar now and you have 10 taps and you put a Sam Adams on and that Sam Adams stays on there for 3.5 months and who cares because the guy, it's the same, it's Bob who always drinks it anyway. But it's not like that. These guys know exactly what they're drinking. They know what it's supposed to taste like. So you want to make sure you get the right number of taps, and I really believe that 20 is the right number. We had another store that has 16, and it just wasn't enough. You flipped them too much, but people are really looking for a little bit of variety. And then there's a lot of things that go into, like, how do you figure out what do you want on your 20 taps? We personally run Yuengling, which is our only domestic beer that's not a light beer on. And it's a big beer in Pennsylvania. And then we also run Coors Light, and then that's it. That's the only 2 domestics. So all the other 18 taps are either local breweries or they're breweries from all over the country. And then one thing that I really decided in the beginning that kind of really piqued my interest and really started this whole ball rolling with craft beer was these specialty beers. And the one that really made me think about it was Mad Elf from Trogs Brewery right outside of Harrisburg. And what I noticed was if you had this Mad Elf on, you would bring people in. And the thing I want you to understand is, I'm a pizza guy. For 17 years before Caliente, I loved pizza and still do. And I really didn't even think about beer. But when anybody opens up a pizza shop, they always say, my pizza's the best. And I didn't want to be that guy. I just wanted to put people in the seats and make the phones ring. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't care if it was from the beer or from the pizza. I figured the pizza would catch up to the beer. I realized that these beer drinkers, if you put certain beers on, they will show up to your store. And then from there, if your food's good, the thing we kept hearing was, wow, I thought it was going to be bar food, and this is really good. So I had to put my pride on the back seat and sell beer. And I probably did that honestly for about 3 years. I mean, we really focused on our beer program, and I just let the pizza speak for itself. I didn't even really market too much about our pizza at all. And it's kind of crazy because, you know, we won a lot of different awards, and now we really put that into our marketing. But in the beginning, the first 3 years, it was all about the beer. And now we're going a little bit more back and trying to find a balance, but we really pushed full force on all this different beer. And the reason would be is because when we put this Trogs Mad Elf on, I found out that people were ringing the phones, wanting to know when it was going to be on. They wanted to see, you know, how much was left in the keg, when we were going to get it, where we going to get another one. And the biggest problem I found is when you go ahead and call your distributor and you say, hey, I want Mad Elf, they tell you probably what a lot of you guys would hear too is, well, you can't have that beer because you didn't sell so many CEs or case equivalents of all this other stuff throughout the year. So they tell you, you know, we're not going to sell it to you. So it was like, you know, I know if I can get this beer and put it on the special, it's going to drive people here. But how do you get that beer if they're not going to sell it to you? And it sounds crazy, but if you guys try to go back and get this beer that's real special, they're probably not going to want to sell it to you. But what I found out is there's a lot of different ways. You know, when you're talking to your distributors and, you know, most people think, okay, I'm going to use my distributor for extra tickets to the football game or extra tickets to the hockey game or tickets to college basketball, or I want all the free promo stuff that they have to give away. And I told them, I said, I don't want any of that stuff. I said, I don't want any tickets. I don't want any concert tickets. I just want the good beer. That's it. You want to know how to sell to me? Bring me the good beer. Keep your tickets. I'll go buy my own tickets. And really, it sounds like that's too easy, but they get a ton of requests for this stuff. And when they realize, like, I don't have to give you anything but the good beer. No, you don't have to give me anything but the good beer. Eventually, you can switch that around back on them because you'll be selling so much, you could start to say, all right, I'm ready for you to juice me up and start giving me the other stuff. But it's all working with your distributors. And the workaround that we figured out was Philadelphia is about 5 hours from Pittsburgh. It might as well be a different state. And their beer market there is probably the third best beer market in the whole country. So what we did was I rent a Suburban, drive all the way to Philadelphia to a beer distributor, load it up with all this beer that you couldn't buy in Pittsburgh. Once I got the license to figure out how to do that, and then drive it all the way back to Pittsburgh, put all this beer on that was really beer that was going to Philly from San Francisco and parts of California, parts of Oregon. They'd send it just to, like, outside of Oregon, they would sell it just to Philly. So I would drive all the way across the state, pick it up, bring it back, put it on tap. And what happened was two things. One, we had so many different people that showed up to drink the beer because they knew we had it and they couldn't get it anywhere else. The second one is all these distributors started to say, you know, why aren't you buying my beer? And I was like, because you won't sell it to me. So that's where the part where I'm trying to say if you want to duplicate it, that's when I learned to say, hey, I don't need any of these tickets. I just need the good beer. And that's where I really started to go. So once we started to put all these specialty beers on, you know, you're buying a keg of Yuengling for maybe $80 or keg Coors Light for $75. And when you start buying some of these specialty beers, you can really get into about $250 a barrel or a 6-barrel, which would be, you know, a third of a half barrel. We buy some 6 barrels that are like $400 a piece. That really, you're talking about a $1,200 keg of beer. How are you going to sell that? This is how you sell it. This is how you make money off of craft beer. The glasses we use right there, we use a 14-ounce pint glass. We use a 9.25-ounce snifter glass. And we use a tool-up glass, which is 10.5 ounces. I'll get a little bit more into how we split up our beer here on the next slide or two. But what I learned was from going to Philly and picking up this beer, I said, well, when I'm out in Philly, why don't I go to their best beer bars? More research. So we would go to these beer bars from Pittsburgh. I maybe have been in 3 to 5 beer bars my whole life. Now in Philadelphia, we would go out for 3 days and probably hit 15 to 20 beer bars. And what I noticed was they were all using different glassware. Nothing came in frosty mugs, and nothing came in these big, tall 22-ounce glasses that, you know, had a Coors Light logo on or anything like that. It was all, you know, little fancy snifter glasses and tool-up glasses and different glasses like that. So I said, well, we're going to go back and do the same thing, you know, and I kind of had a revolt. I brought all these different glasswares and the bartender's like, what the heck do you want me to serve this in? And then you give it to the, the guy who drives a Harley, you try to give him this little glass. Like, what you had to do was you had to educate the customers of why you were serving them this types of beer. It's not just to make money. A snifter glass, for example, is like a little brandy glass. And when you're serving a 12% beer that maybe was aged in a barrel for a year and a half, if you put your hands on it and warm the beer up, you start to get the different vanilla notes out of the barrel and the bourbon taste. And that's what the warmth, and that's why you put your hands around it, and that's why you want it in your glass. When you can teach those little things to your staff, and then when somebody comes in and says, I don't want this beer in this little glass, and you tell them why, hey, you're going to enjoy the beer more if you have it in that glass. Warm it up before you take your sip. Then you can, educate your staff and also educate your customer. Now, here's the biggest thing, the per keg profit. And this is the part that I think will really make you think twice. So if you sell a keg of Yingling or a keg of Coors Light, $80, $4 a pint, you get about 124 pint glasses, 140 if you use the 14-ounce cheater glasses with the bigger bottom. And you'll get about, 124 to 140 glasses, selling them for $4 a piece. So you're talking maybe $300 a barrel profit, and that's about the normal, that's what you would think. So what I'm talking about is buying a $200 barrel, selling it in these 9.5-ounce snifters for $6 a pop, and you end up with about $1,250 on 209 pours, and you end up about $1,000 a keg. And that's what we shoot for, is to make $1,000 a keg. Now, when we sell, the caveat is, the disclaimer would be, when we sell beer that goes into pint glasses, we don't make quite the $1,000. But of our different taps, we maybe have 5 in pint glasses, and the other 15 are all these specialty glasswares. So at least 15 out of 20 kegs, we can make $1,000 a barrel. And that's really, where you want to try and shift it, is shift it to where you're making that kind of money off it. So here's the glassware that we use, and I put it right up there exactly, off of Webster on what you could order. The first one would be the 10.5-ounce. They call it a Poco Grande. It's for all your Belgian beers. It works really well with like your hazy IPAs that get over like 6.5%. Gets about 6.5 to 7.5%. You can sell in that first glass on the left there. All your Belgian beers, your Belgian triples, you get 184 pours with that glass out of a keg of beer. So when you start to do the math on like a $200 barrel, $220 barrel, or $185 barrel, you're getting close to like $650 for a tulip glass. And we get it all day long. Nobody really balks at that price. If you go to these beer bars that I'm talking about, you'll see that they sell them. We were a bar that sold 250 Pabst Blue Ribbon cans, 275 Miller Lite drafts when I took over. Sure, we switched the clientele a little bit when we went ahead and switched, but you get a different customer. You get the customer who's happy to spend that type of money on a beer. We'll have, when we're talking about these 6 barrels that may be $400 for a 6 barrel, and it's, when you're breaking it down, it could be $10, $11 for a small snifter glass. People pay it. They have no problem because they can't get that beer anywhere else. A normal bar owner is not going to go ahead and pay that type of money for that barrel, because a normal bar owner is going to try and serve it in a pint glass. So this is like a hack. This is the whole key to everything, is the glassware. And the second one would be the snifter glass, and you get 209 pours out of that. And like I said, a normal 16-ounce pint glass, you get 124 pours. With this 14-ounce, you get 140 pours. And the 2 ounces really add up. Do you get anybody that kind of complains about, the quote-unquote cheater glass? Sure, you get 1 or 2, but at the end of the day, if, over the last 5 years, if I figure out how much extra money I've made off the extra 2 ounces, it's a huge deal. Then when you get into what do we do next, we went ahead and did a happy hour, and it was, we started at 4:30, 6:30. It's 5 days a week, half price off all the craft drafts. We started with $5 one topping personal pizzas. We now have expanded to Strombolis and some other things for $5. We have a $5 menu. Now, the reason I did this was because if people come into your bar and they say, boy, they got all these $7, $8 beers, or 6 or 7, and they're small pours, boy, they're expensive. You can point and say, I have the best happy hour in the whole city. You can drink the beer for half price. And when you're making $1,000 a keg, it doesn't matter that you're selling it for half price. And the story I like to tell is I would come in, when we're trying to decide what to do as far as happy hours, and Chuck would be sitting at the bar, 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. And man, it's happy hour. Why the heck is Chuck the only one here? The next day I come in, Chuck's sitting there again. The only person in the bar, 5:30. I said, that's it. I don't care. I'm doing half price happy hour. I'm going to see what happens. So 2 weeks go by. I come in, Chuck's there, 6 people with Chuck. 2 weeks from there, Chuck and 12 people. A month later, Chuck and a full bar of people drinking the best happy hour in Pittsburgh. And our happy hour now is always packed. All 5 stores are packed for happy hour. It's one of those things. Would you rather have just Chuck sitting at your bar, or would you rather go half price and fill everything up? When we get into like our pizza and discounting our pizza, in the beginning, sure I did, because I was trying to fight with the big boys, and it took me a while to figure out that, we're independent, and I think we take a lot of pride in, if you want the best pizza, you're going to pay for it. And I think that's fine. I really believe in, we discount our pizza a little bit, but not as dramatically as the chains. But when it comes to the beer, this is your bait. This is what brings them in. It's okay to go ahead and, in my mind, give them something to bring them in during happy hour, because when they're drinking this good beer, they realize that you kick the barrels really quick. So if they come in on a Tuesday or Wednesday for happy hour and they enjoy it and they know you have this special keg on, when it's Friday night or Saturday and they're going out with a group of people, they're like, hey, let's check the draft list and see if Caliente still has this on. And they say, oh, they do still have this beer that they drank for happy hour, and now you get a whole group on Friday and Saturday nights coming. And it really definitely works. The beer, like I said, brings them in, and this was one of the parts that we put into kind of our arsenal to bring them into the stores. The next one would be, what happened was, we opened in September. Craft Beer Week came out in its infancy. It was the second year of Pittsburgh Craft Beer Week, and it came out in April. So we're talking, 5 or 6 months from the time we opened. And the thing is it was really one of those things. I'm like, what is Craft Beer Week? I have no idea. But I also knew that I wanted to sell craft beer. So I said, if I want to sell craft beer and I want my name and logo to be associated with the best beer bars in Pittsburgh, I need to support Craft Beer Week. So I went ahead and I said, all right, we're going to be a sponsor of this Craft Beer Week. I have no idea what it is, but these guys are gold sponsors. It was like $700 to be a bronze sponsor for 1 week. $700 we can agree is a lot of money to spend on some kind of marketing thing. You really don't even understand what it is. But I knew I wanted to be in the same category as all these other beer bars. So I went ahead and I said, we're going to support Craft Beer Week. So 2 things happened really. The first thing was, this is back in 2013, and Craft Beer Week as an association had 10,000 followers on Facebook. We had 700. So what happened was, that week of Craft Beer Week, we doubled our sales. It brought in so many new customers that it was just incredible. It was, as much business as we could handle, and it doubled. And then the second thing it did was, it put us in that beginning stages of being a craft beer bar. I went outside of my comfort zone and went and did something that I really didn't know what it was, but I knew that if you want to be associated with the best beer bars in Pittsburgh, or you want to be associated with something, you have to go and join and do the things that they do. And when you're looking at what do other people do that put them into, what do other people do that you can do that'll put you in the same breath? And that's kind of how you want to look at it. What are these other beer bars doing that maybe you're not doing that you can do? And this was one of them. So the other thing that came from this was probably the greatest thing that grew Caliente. It probably could be a whole nother seminar, but it was Facebook marketing. When I saw that they had 10,000 followers and it doubled our sales and we had 700, I said, whatever I do, I have to get to 10,000 followers. So what I did at that time was I called Facebook and I said, hey, how do I market on Facebook for business? How do I get 10,000 followers? And back in 2013, there was very little people who understood how to do the Facebook ads. I still think that our industry as a whole is maybe a little bit behind on doing the Facebook advertising. We're more used to somebody coming in and trying to sell us an ad in the local paper or the local sheet that goes out once a week, or maybe direct mail. But what I can tell you with this Facebook marketing is Facebook told me, give me $1,500 a month. We'll give you a person an hour a week that will teach you how to use Facebook for business. So that's what I did. And what happened was I spent that $1,500 and we went from one person in the front running the bar with one person in the back running the tables and 2 people cooking to a hostess, 3 bartenders, 3 servers, 2 people cooking in the back to 6. We had a basement downstairs that we redid to a beautiful bar. And then next thing I know, we were buying the second store. And then we bought the 3rd store and the 4th and the 5th. And we just opened the 5th store about 10 days ago. It's kind of amazing that we're here, to be honest with you. It was so busy. And last year we opened up a store and we had a great opening, but we didn't know we were going to really open up that day. It took like the next day is when we got the license. So we opened up the very next day. Couldn't really put it out on Facebook saying we're opening. And what happened this time is I had a week. So it took us about 6 weeks to flip the store. In the very beginning, I put an ad out that says, hey, Monroeville, here we come, bringing the best craft beer bar and best pizza to Monroeville. Put $1,000 on it. Ran it for 6 weeks. And then what I did is the week before we were going to open, I put one up, said, here we come this Friday, 4 o'clock, we're opening, put $1,000 on it. Now, the great thing about Facebook is, just going kind of a little off topic, but it's really important because it shows how we build everything. And when you go ahead and go to Facebook, you can literally put in there, I want to advertise to anybody in a 10-mile radius or shorter, 5-mile radius, anybody who likes pizza, craft beer, wings, whatever your hometown football team is, whatever your hometown college team is. If you've got a hospital that's got a ton of people that work there, you can actually tell Facebook, like, I want to go ahead and put those people up. Like, you can go ahead and advertise just to them. And then what we saw was we doubled our opening from the year before. That's how busy it was. It literally was a line out the door at 4 o'clock. We have never done sales like that ever. It was the most incredible thing. And it wasn't like we had a ton of different things coming out, or we did a big door hanging blitz, or we direct mail to everybody. All I did was the Facebook. And if you're not doing Facebook, you really need to. Like all the other social medias, like they have a little bit of like, sure, you can get really good on Instagram, you get really good on tweeting out different things, but the Facebook's where it's at. And if you don't really understand it, I would almost bet that somebody at your store could show you how to do it. And, and really, like, I would be happy to show anybody how I did it. It was really easy. And what was cool is over the last 5 or 6 years, you have seen that Facebook marketing is so prominent. Now it's a thing that a lot of different industries do a lot of. But really, for me, I learned it from the very beginning. I've been riding that wave the whole entire time. And it all started with Craft Beer Week. The next thing we do was we started to do beer events. And you could see that we've come a long way. We'll do a lot of different things. We would give pints away from new can releases away. You're allowed to, in Pennsylvania, you can give 1 beer away to any customer. So that's what we started to do. We got so good at doing beer events, we actually had the owner of Stone Brewery come in from California. And of all the bars he could pick in Pittsburgh, he came to ours because that's how much Stone beer we sell. And the way we started would be the way that I would tell you guys to start. And this is, really where it gets important and you guys can grasp what I'm talking about is I showed you like the promo girls. That's what everybody thinks about. And what I realized was you could go down to your local brewery, talk to the brewer, get a relationship with them, feed them, give them some beers, and then ask them to come in on Friday nights and talk to your customers. And that's what happened. I met my head brewer of the Church Brew Works, Matt Moniger, became very good friends with him. Matt would come in on Fridays and he would educate my customers on this local brewery right down the street. So instead of doing anything with these big breweries like Coors Light and Yuengling, we did everything with local breweries and we did everything with big breweries from all over the country. That was kind of what we decided to do. We wanted to go ahead and do beer events every Friday, and then one special one throughout the week, like a special tapping. If we got one of these beers that I'm talking about are special, but I realized it was really special, we'd save that for like a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. And then once a month on a Saturday, we would go ahead and tap something special as well. But that was really how we started to form ourselves as a craft beer bar is when you're trying to think each month about doing different events, they were all beer-focused events. And then you can see with the local breweries, and this is what's happening now, is you can see, back in 2013, you can see there was almost like 2,800, almost 3,000 breweries. And, I'm sure the number's a lot bigger now, but in 2017, it doubled. What I saw in 2012 when we opened in Pittsburgh, there were 7 local craft breweries. The number now is over 50. That's how many has expanded in 5 years. So my thought on the local breweries was this. You've got this guy who goes into work on Monday. He's probably about my age, and he says to the young kid who's probably about 24, 25, they're sitting around the office, and he says, "Oh, what did you do this weekend?" And the young kid says, "Oh, I went to Hitchhiker down in Sharpsburg, and it was this local brewery, and it was so good, and it was great." And he says to the older guy, "What did you do?" And the older guy says, "Well, I took my kid to dance, and then I took the other kid to softball, and then I did chores around the house. Like I really didn't do anything this weekend." And then the next weekend, same thing. The young kids tell him how he went to this local brewery. It was so great. And I said, "Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put of those 20 taps that I was talking about, I'm going to make 10 of them local." So now that guy comes in on a Monday and the young kid says, "Oh, what did you do?" "I went to, Brew Gentleman down in Braddock." And the young guy says, the older guy says, "I went to Caliente after softball and I drank this local brewery and this local brewery and this local brewery and this local brewery." And I put all those local breweries in one place. And because it's such a big niche right now, the craft breweries, like I cannot express enough. If you're not doing stuff with the local guys, you need to. And don't be worried that this guy is a mile down the street. Is he going to take my business? Or they can go drink it at the brewery for $4 and they're going to come here and have to pay for $6. They're paying for convenience. That's why they'll pay the $6 at your place. Because they're not just going to drink one beer from you. They're going to drink all these different local breweries all throughout. And then once the local breweries know how much beer you're buying off them, it's a lot easier to say, "Hey, do you think you can come Friday night?" And you don't have to give free glasses away like a big brewery. Just come and talk to my customers. Can you maybe release a keg that you're not going to put anywhere but the brewery? Could you maybe bring a special keg with you come on a Friday night and come talk about why that keg is special? But that's really what I did is I started working with all these different local breweries, and it really made a huge difference to everything because we started to get customers that were, older customers. Now you're getting the younger customers. You were getting everybody that they knew they could come to Caliente and drink all these local breweries that always rotate. And the other thing I want to say that's important is I never put a keg of beer on. And if you run through this keg of beer of, say, Sierra Nevada, I don't replace it with a Sierra Nevada. It's always something different. They rotate. I never put the same barrel on twice. It's always a different keg all the time. And the reason for that is people really want variety. That's what, it changes things up. That's what people are looking for. So I always have a different keg of beer that goes on all the time. The only ones that stay the same are the Coors Light and the Yuengling. We do have them for, your domestic drinker, but you also always want to keep that draft list rotating. And the next thing we did was we started to collaborate with these local breweries. So when we first pitched a local brewery about we wanted to make a beer with them, they looked at us like we were crazy. And the way we were able to do it was we were able to say, "Look, we want to bring like 5 or 6 of our bartenders to your local brewery and make a keg of beer, make a batch of beer." And then they would be like, "Well, do you have any experience?" I said, "Look, we just want to learn, but we'll buy the whole batch." If you do like a small 8-gallon batch, you're talking about 16 barrels. You get them to sell some at their store, and you maybe have to buy 8 barrels. It's so special that you're going to run through that in the next month. Next month, maybe when we started to get more stores, we bought as much as 60 barrels at one time from some of these local breweries. We've done 12 different collaborations. So we'll take our staff up. The bartenders learn about the brewery. They end up selling more of the brewery throughout their time with the company. They'll start selling a lot more of that brewery. So that's a plus for the brewery. And we've sold them local breweries. We've also done Big time breweries like Southern Tier Brewing, we did a collaboration there. We took our whole crew up to Lakewood, which is really cool. A lot of times these breweries will roll out the red carpet for you. They'll put your team up in a hotel. You kind of get a field trip for your team, and it really takes a little bit out of your pocket just to take everybody there besides your time. And then when you come back, you're the only one with this beer. So if we're talking about trying to put special beer on to increase your sales, this is the best way. Nobody has ever sold this beer besides us and the brewery. That's it. So people want to try that. They want to see what's different about it. And we've done a ton of different breweries. We did it so well that we've been copied back in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of other restaurants that now are doing collaboration beers with breweries. And it's really very uncommon. Like, it took a lot for me to pitch this to the breweries, but once they could see that they were going to sell 8 kegs at once rather than me just trying to buy 1 keg, they were really in tune with the idea. Another really important part of this whole beer part of how do you put beer and how do you sell it, how do you present it well, you've got the right glass, and you're educating your staff on it, you're doing your research and learning what beers you're supposed to sell. The draft list is your most important part. And the reason it's the most important part is you have to have something that's updated. It's in the store, it's in their hands, it's updated, they can see every beer you have, the prices are on there. And then you also want to make sure that this is online. Because what you're going to find is you can tweet it out and say, hey, this is our draft list just updated. Every time you put a new beer on, we take a picture of it. We take a picture of it, we put it online, and we put a link right to the website. So we use Untapped, which has a great system for updating your beer system. So we pay Untapped so much a year, and then what they do is the draft list, as soon as we go into Untapped and put the new beer on, it's live on our website, updated. You can print out a new list with it, and anybody can go on our website right then and there and see that we changed our draft list. And it says, hey, your draft list was changed at 4:20 in the afternoon on Wednesday. And we keep everything up to date. It's a big deal. We used to, had a system where we're trying to keep it up to date, and you kick 4 barrels and it may take 2 days to change them, and we're not putting the right handles up because it's just a pain in the butt, and you're just putting a handle on with a piece of paper that says what the beer is, taped to it. Like, all that stuff is garbage. Like, if you're spending all this money on going to put the time in to spend this money on a keg and put the money in to spend it and then do your research, you want to present this well. If you go to these beer bars in your locations and your cities, you're going to notice that they're not doing that stuff. They're not taking the shortcuts. They're making sure that their draft lists are up to date all the time. They're putting the right handles on. They're making sure that people are educated on what you're selling. You want to do the same thing. It took a while for me to shift out of, I'm a pizza guy, and shift to, I want to go ahead and sell the most beer that I possibly can. So the next thing, like I said, we promote everything right online. It's great because it gives you something to tweet out, daily or probably a few times a day with all the different stores. And then we offer everything on Facebook. We show a picture of it. You can see, that glass is a custom glass on the one on the right, but it's a 14-ounce pint glass. We do samplers. We do a little 5-ounce glass, 4 of them for $12. So it gives everybody a little bit of variety so they can drink through the whole draft list. But we promote the heck out of it. I think a lot of times when people try to figure out how are they going to do Facebook, how are they going to do Instagram, how are they going to do Twitter, the problem is you get real excited, you put everything out there, and like 4 days later you realize, like, what the hell am I supposed to promote now? Like, where's the content from? The best part about the beer is it gives you all kind of content because you're constantly tapping different beers. You can promote this stuff. And the beer enthusiasts out there, you actually can promote stuff that coming next. We would do a thing where we put kegs in the cooler. When we would buy beer that we know, like, it may not even go on for 2 or 3 weeks, we'd take a picture of the cooler and put, here's all the kegs that we have coming up next, on deck. And then people would start to be looking for the tap list online to see, did that stuff go on tap yet? So you're just using social media really to create some excitement and really put out there what you're doing as far as your bar. And of course, all the events we're putting out there, if we've got an event on Friday night, it's out there heavy. I do put money behind it too every week, may drop $500 or so on a Facebook ad and go ahead and put it out there. And the whole thing is, when you're talking about, like, to me, that's a lot of money when you're talking about $500, but think about it. What do you spend on the Valpak? What do you spend on Penny Saver? You know, what do you spend on all these different direct mails? Like, sure, I still do some of them, but when you can shift your thinking to putting money on social media, you're going to see everything switch. You know, a lot of people will say to me, like, I can't believe you spend money on Facebook. And I'll say, I can't believe you spend money on the Valpak. Like, a lot of that stuff is outdated. You want to really shift to the social media. And when you're talking about the craft beer, and a lot of the guys are younger and girls that drink craft beer, they're not opening up their mail. They're going right to their phone and looking to see what's hip and checking their draft list right on their phone. So that's why you want to make sure you're putting all this information on your social media. And then, you know, the next part is have fun. You know, this is one of our draft lists. This board's probably, you know, 6 feet by 8 feet. We have a chalk artist that comes in once a month. They put all the different beers up there. And when we change the draft list online and we change the draft list on paper, you know, we have the bartenders wipe it off on chalk and write up the new tap list and always keep it up to date. And that's really what we try to do with it is, you know, at the end of the day, it's pizza and beer. And that's what's so great about it. And what we kind of saw was, after building this all up, we started to get some notoriety for the pizza. And really, I started coming to Expo 5 years ago. When I came to Expo 5 years ago, you know, I was like a kid in a candy shop. It was my first time here, and as you guys can see from the showroom floor, there's so much to take in, and just loved it. And I sat in all these different seminars, and I was super excited. And I still couldn't go back and just sell pizza like I wanted to push it, because, like I said, everybody says they have great pizza. This was a way that by figuring out the beer game to be able to really push that. And eventually we won a contest at home that named us the #3 pizza in Pittsburgh. The first 2 were guys that have been around for 50 years. So I took that, put it on social media and said, best new pizza in Pittsburgh, voted by Channel 11, and just pushed that on Facebook. And that started to build it up. And then I had, you know, somebody that worked for Pizza Today that lived in Punxsutawney came down to see me and try the pizza. And then from there, I learned about the Pizza Expo, and I learned about all these different things. And then before I know it, after I was here, I saw the competitions, and I started to put together guys that I thought could do well at these competitions. Then before you know it, you know, we won 2016, we won the best pan pizza in the world here. 2017, one of my guys won the world's largest pizza stretch down there. And then last year, we won the best non-traditional pizza. But it wasn't until we started winning those awards that then I could go back home after we had already built a following of foodies and beer enthusiasts. And now I could say, look, we do have the best pizza. And, you know, we could push, you know, all the different things we do, and we could really show them a whole different side. Our marketing focused to, you know, pizza champions and all this different stuff. But it wasn't until none of that was possible without the beer. You know, and I know it's extreme too, like a lot of what I'm talking about with the beer, but I believe it can be duplicated. And I think the point is, a lot of guys have pizza shops and they just sell pizza in pitchers. And if you notice in your market, I'm sure it's probably similar to my market, burgers and craft beer is a huge thing. There's probably 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 different places in Pittsburgh that are, you know, a burger and craft beer. And really all it is like half pound of burger with some bacon jam on it for like $12, and they're selling good craft beer. But there's so many different of them. In Pittsburgh, there was nobody selling pizza and craft beer the way we do. So that's why I got into it, and I said, you know what, we're going to follow the burger guys. And then I wanted to make sure that we, culinary-wise, stayed ahead of the curve so that everybody, if anybody ever figured out that you could sell great beer with great pizza, I didn't want them to ever surpass us in the pizza side of the culinary things. And that's why, you know, I brought in a culinary chef to kind of take us to the next level. And that's who came out and was competing and helping create this culture that our guys were competing and winning. But it all started with the beer, just because I realized that's what puts people this day and age in your place. This is what separates you from everybody else in the beginning. And it's one of those things that if, you know, with the way of third-party delivery and all these different things affecting our business and taken away from our delivery side, if you have a place that has tables and you're full service and you have a bar, you know, you're really missing the boat if you're not tapping into the local breweries that are around you, a great resource, and if you're not tapping into all this different craft beer that's available all the time. And, you know, as Ben Franklin said, beer is proof that God wants us to be happy. And even for a guy who doesn't drink, I'll tell you what, selling $5 million worth of beer in the last 6 years sure has made me happy. So I appreciate it. That kind of wraps me all up. I do have time for a few questions. If anybody has a couple questions, sure. Sure. So the question is what's an acceptable spillage when you're trying to figure everything out, which is a great question. I figure 1,940 ounces out of a keg. And really, that's already got the spillage built into there. I believe it's somewhere, I want to say it's like 1980, 1990. So I almost figure almost like a pitcher and a half of beer for spillage is already built in there. So everything's based off of 1,940 ounces. And that's how I do all my math, off of that number. Sure.
What are you using for gas? You use cold CO2 and you blend it like nitrogen?
Sure. So we don't use, the question was, what do we use for gas? Do we blend it? We don't run any beers on nitrogen. We don't run a Guinness. A lot of these different craft breweries do have some kind of stouts that are nitro stouts, but I've tried to mess around with them a little bit, but what we use is a 60-40 for gas. We don't blend it. We just buy it 60-40. A lot of times, all the gas guys sell it. Some of them try to sell you a 75-25. But what I noticed is the 60-40 keeps the beer fresher longer. And it really gives you a good pour from like day 1 to day 14 on a keg. It's much better. One of the stores we bought did have a blender, and we do use the blender there. But, if I have a choice I think 3 of the 5 stores we put new systems into when we took over, we always go with just straight 60-40 gas in the system. Sure.
Do you still carry any Bud Lights and pickle?
Great question. Absolutely we do. We sell 10 cases of Miller Lite every single week in bottles. We sell a ton of takeout beer every single week. We sell Bud Light. We sell Coors Light. We sell Mick Ultra at the suburban stores. All in bottles though. And when we started, I think they were like $2.75. We're up to $3.75 a bottle for us. One thing that we did too, I don't know if you guys have tax on the beer in your states or in your counties, but they put a 7% tax on the beer. In the first year, I went ahead and I just ate the tax. Like I built that. I said, okay, it's $3.75 a bottle, so 24 cents of that is just going to go to tax. After I figured out that once we had 2 stores and it was like $100,000 that I paid out in a tax that I didn't charge, I put a button on my computer at 7% tax. It's not like, $3.89 for a beer or something like that. But I was like, there's no way I'm eating that tax. It's like, there's a whole nother thing, but if you're not charging for delivery, it's the same thing. You're missing the boat. Everybody expects to pay for delivery. You should be charging for delivery. If you figure, we went from $1 to, 6 years later, we're at $2.50. Maybe we lost one customer over it. I doubt it. Everybody expects to pay for delivery. Look at your local Pizza Hut. They're probably charging $3.50. Look at the Uber craze. Who knows? Sometimes you catch them towards a peak. They're charging $6.99 to deliver your food. People don't care. They expect to pay that delivery. People expect to pay tax. So that's the same thing. But as far as carrying all the different domestic beer, we do. We just don't advertise it. That's all. Sure. Well, I think that's what's tough is like when you have 6 to 10 taps, in the very beginning we had 10 taps, and I said to the guy trying to sell me the tap system, who has turned out to be a great resource. He's one of those people that you count on 5 hands that if you call the guy, he's going to pick up his phone. He's honest. He always keeps his word. So he's one of those guys that is good. There's not too many of them in business is my point. And he told me, he said, look, if you double your tap system, are you going to sell double the amount of beers? No, you're not. Are you going to sell 2 to maybe 3 more kegs, than you used to? Yes, you are, because that's just the way it works. It's going to bring more people in. It's scary to take away all that stuff that people are used to buying. I'm sure you can think of your regular customer who comes in and drinks a Blue Moon every single time he comes in, or drinks a Miller Lite every time he comes in. Are you going to maybe lose a customer to gain, 4 or 5 more customers by putting a different beer on. That's what you got to kind of play. I took the personal side out of it, and it was maybe a little easier in the beginning because I didn't have that guy who showed up at the bar for, that he's going to be there every Thursday at 4 o'clock, and then all of a sudden his beer's not on. You got to hear him, bitch at you that you took his beer off the draft system. But I really believe that if you change your taps over, the risk is worth the reward. The word's going to get out there that you have all this different beer. And the local brewery is a great place to start. There's no doubt about it. So I would say yes. Will you feel a lot of backlash? Yes. Will you feel backlash from your employees? You will, because they're going to be pissed that whoever they used to, fill their beer up and probably slide them an extra glass, and he tipped them extra. Now his beer's not on there, so he's going to be upset. The bartender will be upset. But in the long run, you're creating a different culture. You're going to gain a lot of customers that know that you have local breweries always on tap. Well, like I said, we had never sold Coors Light on draft up until just very, very recently. And it was a big, big thing for us. It was like, do we sell Coors Light? Do we not sell Coors Light? And really what it came down to is we ended up selling just Coors Light, not Miller Lite, not anything else. And it came back to like what I said originally, like I didn't need any of these tickets or anything like that. But once we had built up enough clout, we now had something more than tickets from Coors Light. We could go and say, hey, at the Pittsburgh Penguin games, we want to be up on the scoreboard with our logo. We want to be in the different magazines. Like, we wanted to be really represented really well. We want to be on radio. We want to be on TV. Coors Light was able to do all those things. So eventually, sure, we partnered with them, but we didn't run Coors Light specials. We just went ahead and partnered and said, we'll put your beer on draft. Like, they were so desperate to get them in there. It was like the opposite. At first, like, you're almost begging everybody for all the stuff they can give you. And if you position yourself right, eventually they'll be begging you to put their beer into your store. And that's really where, it's like you want to change that kind of rub. You want to make yourself more attractive than they are. So, Miller Lite and stuff, I just felt like one light beer was enough. So it has changed how I used to look at it. I would, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, would say never put a light beer on. Just put if you're in Texas, your Shiner Bock, or, your Yingling if you're on the east side of the country. But now, I do think that what happened was when we opened our 3rd store, we did alienate some customers by having no light beer on draft. So when we opened our 4th store up, I said, you know what? We're paying so much money to take over someone else's business. We want to keep some of these customers. Let's just put one light beer on tap. And what happened? And we did. It was okay switching from just one light beer and then one regular beer, but we never have more than 2 domestics, I guess. But we have every single domestic bottle you can think of. And we sell a lot of them. I mean, we really do. We just sell a ton of craft beer is what it is. I don't think anyone ever says, I want to go in and drink Miller Lite at Caliente, like that's why I'm going there for a Miller Lite. But they will say, I want to go for, a Hitchhiker or, a 4 Points or something local, like they will drive there for that beer. So if that helps, I guess. Sure. Sure. So the average size is roughly about, they're all different. So the way everyone always says, like, how do you pick where you're going to go next location? I just look for a good deal, being completely honest. I don't want to be in debt for more than 5 years on anything that I buy. I don't want to build out and get a rent that's just enormous. What I try to do is just buy the space, and then we paint all the walls black, and we put free beer signs from all these beer places. They give us all the tin tackers, and we put them all on the wall. So we literally paint the walls black, put free beer signs up on the walls. Sure, we may put new floors in, we may put new lighting in, new chairs, new tables, but that's kind of the feel. So then, the size all varies. I would say we're anywhere from 60 seats in our smallest place to 150 seats in our biggest place. Sure. I'll come back. Yeah, that's a good question too. Like, with 20 taps, how do you keep track of what's fresh and what's not fresh? The biggest thing I can tell you is, here we are in March. Somebody's going to come and try and sell you a winter beer. Like one of the reps, they're going to try and get rid of their inventory, and they're going to say, hey, would you take this keg of winter beer? I'll knock $50 off it. And you start thinking, wow, they knock $50 off it. It's normally 175. I can get this barrel for 125, and you buy it because you think it's a good deal. But it's a winter beer and it just sits there forever. Or if you're putting spring beers on in summer, or if you're putting stouts on in the summer, or if you're putting shandies on in October. Like, you have to pay attention and learn what types of beer to put on for the season. That's probably the best way to describe it, because, you know, and you got to figure out what sells too. There's, you know, IPAs still sell, you know, better than anything. And sometimes somebody could come into our location and feel like we don't have a beer draft list that has one brown ale, one Pilsner, one lager, you know, 3 IPAs, 2 stouts, like very, very organized. We don't do that. We just don't. I sell what sells, to be honest with you. I don't want the brown ale that's going to sit there for 3 months. Let the bar down the street sell it. I'd rather sell an IPA that's hot, that's going to move. With all the hazy IPAs are in, like, I would put a hazy IPA on 10 times before I put a brown ale on. You know, will I eventually put a brown ale on? Yeah, probably in October when it's like a little bit later in the season. You know, but it's all about knowing the season and what to put on and what's hot. You know, don't worry about having I have to have one Pilsner, one lager, all that stuff. Let somebody else worry about that. Just sell what's selling. You know, that's probably the best way. We do. We actually, that's the one we have 24 at, actually. And like I said, he asked at the 60-seat restaurant, do we have 20 taps? And we actually have 24 at that one. That's the one that I said up the street, they had 22, so we put 24 in. I do wish that we put 20 in instead. What I do is, with the other extra taps, we have a local cidery, and I put the cider on those extra 4 taps because I found out that cider sells really well too. So I went ahead and put the cider on there, and just so we don't have to worry about what beer we're going to put on, we sell more cider at that particular location. But in another great way I was just going to mention to move through beer is to sell growlers. And it's one of those things where you just want to move volume. You know, we usually do like a $20 growler to give you an idea for like a keg that's under $150. A keg from like 150 to maybe 2 1/4, like $25 for a growler. We are actually, when we get back, switching some of our daily specials. We haven't switched them in probably about 3 years. We're going to do we usually do a $5 off on a growler. We're going to do a buy one, get one free growler, not including the glass. And I figured out that it's still like 10 cents an ounce that we're going to make. So we'll still make, you know, anywhere from like $5 to $7 off a growler. We're just going to move more beer. So a lot of that is just trying to move more beer. And one of the reasons we did that too is in our state, all the 6-packs you could only buy at, Pennsylvania is goofy because it's a Commonwealth. You could only buy a 6-pack or a 12-pack at a bar. You couldn't buy it at a beer distributor or a supermarket. You could just buy it at a bar. Well, now they made it legal. You can buy 6-packs anywhere. So what we decided to do was we're going to really start market our growlers more, because you can't go into like a gas station and buy growlers. Now you can go ahead and you can come to us and buy the growlers a lot cheaper, and we're just going to move more beer to kind of answer your question. Good. Right. So she asked about, like, you know, did we get rid of our liquor? We still have a liquor program. We sell all the liquor. We've gone through a lot of different changes with our liquor. We've tried to figure out something that works. We've tried to do different wine programs. We've tried to do different specials and stuff with it. We just recently, in the last maybe 6 months, created a cocktail menu because it seems like that's pretty popular right now. We put some focus into the cocktails and the liquor. We don't put a ton of focus into it. We have it for the person that wants to drink it. The cocktails are nice, I think, because you're getting $6 or $7 for something a little fancier. Maybe somebody that used to drink Captain and Coke will drink a more crafty whiskey or rum and Coke. We just haven't really focused on a ton of it. And I think maybe that's the part of like me not drinking that kind of played to not having such a craft cocktail. Like, I felt like me not drinking, I could go ahead and still supervise how we're doing beer, no problem. But when you get into how people are pouring into jiggers and everything else, like, it just, to me, it wasn't a battle I wanted to fight. I guess that's really what it was. So we do it, but, You know, we have toppers on all the liquors. It's like 1 ounce pours. We have 1 ounce shot glasses. And it's like, it's there, but it's not really a focus at all. Any other questions? Sure. Pardon me? No, what was the? Oh, we have a local place that does kombucha. We try to sell it. That was a tricky one because I don't think they were doing it right, and it kind of went bad quick. I know it's not even anywhere near it, but we do like $5 sangrias on Fridays. We haven't really done much with the kombucha. Just there's one place that does it, and they do it okay. They don't really do it great, so we've never really done too much with it, I guess is what it is. But we do a ton with cider. There's a couple meaderies. We do a lot with the mead, a lot with the cider. Like I said, we tried it because it was local. It just never caught on, I guess. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yep, great. Thanks.